Welcome to Focus on Growth. I'm Tom Doorley of Sage Partners. I'll be your host today. Today, we're continuing a series of episodes focused on this troubling issue called the fog of change. With all the things happening in the world, immense changes and rapidly in terms of technology, shifting geopolitical storms, the fact that social media, small number of people, can have an outsized impact on our world, and we have to deal with that. We call that the fog of change. And so this series, we're going to take it apart and see if we can find out ways to help us all see through the fog. Today's episode is going to focus on personal responsibility for your team, yes, but also for yourself. With me is Jen Barron as my guest, and Jen comes out of a strategy consulting background at Deloitte Consulting, and she now has her own coaching practice, and she has a lot of experience in helping people understand how to deal with challenges, how to deal with change at the personal level. Welcome, Jen.
Thank you, Tom. I'm really looking forward to this conversation with you.
Would you like to add anything to my brief description?
Well, I would say, I had a long career, kind of like you, in consulting, working with companies to help them grow, not just at Deloitte, but also 17 years at Monitor and at Profit. And I led marketing at Fidelity for a while. And while pursuing my corporate career, I also went through many personal transformations. And I really get to now bring the personal and the professional together to help high achieving leaders who have hit some sort of bump in the road, an inflection point, and really want to reach their highest potential, but need some support or guidance or provocateur. And I love doing what I do. And I think this is such an important conversation. So I'm really looking forward to it.
Super. So let's get into it. So we're going to talk about some of the principles that you and I outlined in terms of how you see yourself and people you're advising dealing with the fog of change. The first one is this concept you call let go of knowing. That's kind of interesting. Tell me what you mean by that.
Well, that was the first thing that popped to mind because it's really hard not to have clear answers when you're the leader and when the stakes are high. And so many of us feel pressure, whether it's from the outside or inside, to be decisive, to know the answer, to look confident. In fact, that's how many of us got ahead. Mm-hmm. But given what you outlined in the beginning and how much uncertainty there is in the environment and how fast change is happening, it's literally impossible to know. It's just not possible. So we have to shift from leading from knowing to not even just leading from doing, but leading from being. Like, as a leader, can we be calm in chaos? Can we be comfortable in our not knowing? Can we guide an organization without having the answers? And I have some tips about how to do that, but I think it's a pretty big shift in how we think about ourselves as leaders.
It is. And so I give you some, a couple of years ago during COVID, we did a series of webinars called Reignite Growth. And I was a host and we had people on a panel. And one of them was the woman who is the CEO of what is called King Arthur Baking now, used to be King Arthur Flour. And she talked about how she'd bring all her people together, which small organization, 400 people. And she would ask them, what's on your mind? And they would ask her things. She said if she ever didn't know, she would never try to sort of BS it. She'd say, hey, I'm sorry, I don't know that. Next time we're together, I'll have an answer for you or be as close as I can to it. Give us some other tips in this category of collaboration, giving up knowing.
Yeah, well, I think that you touched on one of them, which is just asking great questions versus having the answers. And now, is not the time to sit in your office and look at spreadsheets or pro formas or things that might help you feel safe and secure, but it's a time to be out there with your employees, if you have them, with your customers, with your competitors, with your peers, asking great questions. And to me, a great question is exploratory, it's curious, it's future focused. Mm-hmm. So back in the, as a young woman, there was do's and don'ts, to how to look. Don't say to your CIO, hey, you got this AI thing under control, right? It's kind of closed-ended, already a little bit of judgment in your mind. Right. And I have one client right now who, at every single one of his senior leadership team meetings, he opens it up by saying something like, how do we make this crisis an opportunity by the actions we take? Really open-ended, but every time, how do we make this crisis an opportunity? So 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, we're going to be better and stronger than we are today. And it really kind of has the whole organization engaged and thinking more positively versus sort of hunkering down. So I thought that was a great example.
I think that's a great example, and you did good work to help them understand that, because right now it's all sort of focused, not all, but it's really focused on risk, the downside, the things that could go wrong, and we have to obviously be careful about that. But I like your idea of saying, let's seek the upside and find ways to make something good out of the changes that are happening. I think that's great.
Yeah. And also another piece of this is not shouldering it alone, which also can be very tempting for leaders of organizations. And your risk point made me think of a different person I work with who is a CEO of an insurance company. And so they think about risk a lot.
Oh, yeah.
And they, every of their leadership meetings, have a risk impact matrix where they list, they have the different risks listed, and then they think about what's the likelihood and what's the potential impact. But they think about that together, and clearly then they're working through options and strategies and all of that. But an unintended benefit for that organization is that it's making that team be more of a leadership team versus what I'm sure you've seen a lot of is, my team is marketing, my team is ops, my team is IT. No, our team is the organization as a whole. And right. I think the winners are going to be those who are able to think kind of broadly and deeply about the business as a team. So, you're not alone, and your team often has a lot more to contribute than you might assume if you bring the uncertainty to them.
No question. I think opening yourself up like that is terrific. Let's now talk about something which happens and is natural. It's the whole idea of, in this fog of change, we face a lot of stress, a lot of anxiety.
Yeah.
How do we help our teams de-stress? How do we help ourselves de-stress? What is your advice here?
So this is a biggie.
It is the biggie.
And so, we can feel it as individuals, just like, oh my God, I can't believe this is happening and I have no control over it. And it's happening now, but it's even, I have, happening, it just happens. Like one person I work with, his business unit that he leads is for sale.
Go.
That creates a lot of stress no matter what's going on in the environment, right?
Indeed, no?
So, even if you've made peace with not knowing, your nervous system might not have gotten the memo. And times of uncertainty activate the survival response in our brain. It literally activates that fight, flight, or freeze response. And one thing I know is when we're stressed, we're not at our best. And research even shows when our brains are stressed, our field of vision narrows, our ability to access creativity narrows, and our perspective is just not there. And we know it feels crappy to be anxious or in fear. And it also, maybe to make it worse, is it's sort of people feel it, and it's a contagion effect. Then the people around you get more stressed. And we know this from vibes, bad vibes, but there's also science around it, like mirror neurons. We literally mirror each other emotionally. So it is really important to get a handle on it. And I think of this in two ways, like what can you do in the moment, and then what can you do kind of preventatively. And in the moment, I call it nervous system regulation. And nobody teaches us. This is amazing to me. Nobody teaches us how to do this. And yet, as a human, let alone as a leader of an organization, knowing how to regulate your nervous system.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah. And So I teach a lot of tools around this but the simplest one is, which I could probably do right now because I'm a little bit nervous, is getting grounded, feeling your feet on the ground, becoming aware of your breath, and box breathing. I think some organization, the military, teaches that, which means breathe in for 4 seconds, hold your breath, and then exhale for 4 seconds, hold for 4 seconds. And if you just do that a couple of times, physiologically, you go from that fight, flight, or freeze part of your brain, which is called the sympathetic nervous system,
Yep.
into the parasympathetic, which is rest and relax. And not only does your heart rate slow and you feel better, you actually have more access, again, to your creativity and your empathy. And then that mirrors to your organization. And there's other techniques, even simpler than that. But I think
but that box breathing is terrific. I have a son who's a psychotherapist, and he teaches breathing in general and
yes,
box breathing to his clients.
yeah.
What about for the organization now? That's sort of helping yourself. How
Yeah.
do you de-stress the organization?
Well, I mean, the first is being less stressed yourself.
Well, that's true. Yes,
because it does make a big difference.
Oh.
The second is you can teach your organization all of this. It shouldn't be a secret, right? You can start, some of the most progressive leaders I know start meetings with, let's breathe together.
Oh. Yeah.
Or I've noticed we're up, I started yelling at you and I feel my anxiety coming up. I feel tempted to get frustrated. I'm going to say that out loud and say, give me a moment. Let me check back in with myself. So literally model what you're doing for yourself with your peers and with your colleagues. And thirdly, I think the more you make your own uncertainty explicit, you bring your team in, you make your own feelings explicit, it destigmatizes it because everybody else is feeling it as well. And B, it has less of a hold on you. As soon as you say something out loud, like, wow, I'm really freaked out about these tariffs, or it actually has less of. So I think modeling with your team is really important.
Let me just pick up on it because I think this is really important because you're being authentic. And to be a leader, you have to be authentic.
Yeah.
And to say, look, you're concerned, I'm concerned. Let's try to talk about it, figure out what we can do, things we can do, let's do them, and things we can't, we can set aside. But I think being open about that is very authentic and it's very important if you can have trust in the organization.
Exactly. And something else I wanted to mention, because it's just one of the coolest things I do right now is, and I think it's sort of like the X factor in like performance and well-being, is I call it mental fitness. This is sort of the preventative to stress, and it's applicable as an individual organization, which is, and your son probably knows this, but they say that human beings have something like 60,000 thoughts a day. Mm-hmm. I don't know how they measure that, and 80% of those thoughts are negative. And 95% of those 80% are repetitive, negative thoughts. So that kind of means so many of us are living in a cycle of unhelpful mental habits. It could be rumination, self-criticism, like, I can't believe I did that. What a jerk, or judging other people, judging those circumstances. And we're often doing that without even thinking about it or even being aware. And the reason it matters is that simplifying things, our thoughts influence our feelings influence our actions, and our actions influence our results. So if you're thinking, I'm going to fail, or I always screw this up, you're likely to be in a feeling of some type of anxiety, or maybe even depression or something. And then from that place, how do you act? Some people go into avoider. They just avoid, they procrastinate, they buffer, They watch not Netflix. They don't, and sure enough, self-created reality, they kind of don't do well. Or other people go into hyperachiever and work super hard and don't prioritize, exhaust themselves, might win the battle, but then kind of lose the war of sustained level of success and achievement. So, and we spend all our time thinking about our actions, even our performance reviews, all of that. It's all about just our actions. But few of us know, hey, we can go all the way back to what are we thinking and what are we feeling? And how can we learn how to manage our mind? Because I think that is the superpower.
Wow.
And it's learnable. And one of the things I do is I teach an 8-week, what I call mental fitness program, which literally teaches you how to rewire your brain into the positive, that's, views challenges as opportunities, and how to understand what your own negative mental patterns are. We all have different ones. How to pause, lower that voice, and tap into our inherent kind of sage wisdom. And that's another thing that I wish we all learned as children. I mean, I think the world would be a better place. And, and as leaders.
This is a nice segue then for our third point, and that is that you're responsible for your own happiness. So it sounds like what you're talking about there is responsible for getting your mental fitness right. So explain this now. The second one might have been the big one, but I think this is the most intriguing. Responsible for your own happiness.
Yeah. So many of us, and I have been guilty of this, fall into the pattern of I'll be happy when. I'll be happy when my daughter's in this one right now, this crazy project ends where I'm working 80 hours a week. I'll be happy when the stock market stabilizes. I'll be happy when, I get the promotion, etc. But I saw a quote once that said something like, why don't we pause on the pursuit of happiness and just be happy? Which I thought was pretty powerful, because happiness doesn't actually come from the result. We think it might, but that's short-lived. And I'm sure all these people, you get X and then you want Y. So the goalposts keep shifting, and happiness actually comes from your mind.
Yeah.
And what you choose to appreciate, what you put your attention on, the meaning you give it. And hey, we're all going to the same place, Tom, the destination. And when they say enjoy the journey and smell the roses, that's,
I think that's terrific, because there's sort of something about the process, because you're right. The actual victory is relatively short, right?
Yes.
And it's sort of how it is you get there, and what it is you think about yourself. And I think the techniques of saying, hey, here I am right now. I'm going to enjoy the sunshine or the birds chirping or that jazz record I wanted to play. And I like that. I think it's a good thing, but it says also that I am responsible. I can see myself as a victim, but that's not really good. See myself as being responsible. Now I can go somewhere. I like that.
Yeah.
Right.
And it sounds a little bit maybe like, daisies and roses and all that. But it's actually pretty hard to do, because I've worked with this on myself. I work with this people, and it's very almost seductive to go back into the victim or to the, our emotional set point. And then to say, no, I can actually make a choice to live from a different place. Actually takes discipline, but it's so worth it.
Right.
Yeah.
So the final thing here, you reinvented yourself as you left Deloitte Monitor, from doing one thing with groups and teams and all that to being your own coach. So give us your elevator pitch now. What does the next several years look like for you, Jen?
Well, I love my one-on-one coaching, so I just want to deepen that practice. I want to offer mental fitness to as many people as I can, because as I said, I think it's a way to elevate the overall spirit of the world. And what I'm moving towards now is team coaching versus one-on-one. And it's fascinating to me. I was talking to someone about this, and we were talking about how if you think about great teams, like a sports team, I know the Celtics lost last night, but that great sports team. I assume you're a Boston fan.
Oh, yes, yes, yes. But they won the championship the year before. So
Yes,
we can live with that. Yeah, yeah.
We could live with that, yeah.
Right.
Or an orchestra or something like the Blue Angels or whatever. What do those teams do? They practice. They practice being a team.
Mm-hmm.
And if you think about it, in the business world, we're creating teams all the time. And we assume that if individuals are great and they kind of know their roles, the team will just work. But we don't really practice being a team. And I think high-performing teams are more than just a collection of talent, and they're built through trust and through practice and through real collaboration. And I think when an organization has a really high-performing team like that, that's a true competitive advantage, no matter how big the fog of change.
Yep.
So I think my future is more, working on that level where you can really scale some of the things that I'm talking to have an even bigger impact.
Good for you. That's right. Because I do believe the power of teams.
Yeah.
And I'm a great believer in the sports analogy and people playing on teams and learning from it. And I think that's really important. So thank you for your time today, Jen. I wish you well. And in closing, how can people get in touch with you? If they'd like to be your own client, team-wise or individually, how would they reach out to you?
Probably the easiest way is LinkedIn. That's where I communicate a lot and have my contact information. So is Jennifer J. Barron, and the business is J.J. Barron Growth Coaching.
Great. Super. So thank you for that. If you want to get in touch with me and Sage Partners, I'm T. Doorley at sagepartners.net. And obviously you can see us on the podcast. I'd like to close with a note here that is sort of part of this episode of The Fog of Change. So the change is dramatic. Jennifer helped us see through the fog of change on a personal level and even moving towards a team level. And that's really important. So there's a quote by a woman named Catherine Ann Porter that goes back to 1950. And it goes something like this. She says, remember 1950, the atom bomb had burst on the scene. There was a battle going on the Korean Peninsula, the Korean War. While World War II was over, here come the Soviet Union with some big aggressiveness, fighting virtually everybody in the West. It was a challenging time, and the computer era was about to begin. It's a pretty scary thing. Catherine Ann Porter looks at that and says, you can look at this and see that these are disparate pieces about to fly apart, or that they are fragments that we can assemble into something better. Mm-hmm. I think that's where we should be. We did it once before, maybe many times before. Let's do it again. Thank you for listening. Take care and be well.